My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 19 years old. The first time my father told me I was a mistake, I was 8. I still remember that day so clearly. It was a cold Saturday morning in November. The sky outside was gray, and the rain tapped softly against our kitchen window. My mom was at work, and I was sitting at the table with a school project in front of me. I had made a family tree using colored paper, glue, and little photos I had printed at school. I was proud of it. I had spent 2 whole days making it look perfect. At the top, I wrote in big pink letters, "The Carter Family." I drew a heart around my mom's picture. Then I put my dad's picture next to hers. Under them, I placed my own school photo, smiling with missing front teeth and messy brown hair. I was waiting for Dad to come into the kitchen so I could show him. When he finally walked in, he looked tired and annoyed, like he always did. He worked at a car repair shop and usually came home smelling like oil and smoke. That morning, he poured himself coffee without even looking at me. "Dad," I said softly, holding up the project with both hands. "Look what I made for school." He turned his head for 1 second. Just one. Then he shrugged. "That's nice." My smile dropped a little. "I got an A last time. Maybe I can get another one." He took a sip of coffee and opened the fridge. "Good for you." I stared at him, waiting for more. A smile, a question, anything. Instead, he slammed the fridge shut because there was no milk left. "Why does your mother never buy enough of anything?" he muttered. I looked down at my project. "Do you like it?" He finally looked at me. Not at the paper. At me. And I don't know why, but something in his face made my stomach hurt. He let out a long breath and rubbed his forehead. "Emily, I'm not in the mood for this right now." My fingers tightened around the cardboard. It only takes 1 second. That was when his face changed. His eyes went cold, and his mouth became a hard line. "1 second?" he snapped. "You think I have time for arts and crafts?" I froze. "I work all week," he said louder. "I come home tired, and all I hear is talking, questions, noise." "I'm sorry," I whispered. But he didn't stop. "Sometimes I think my whole life got ruined the day your mother got pregnant with you." The room went silent. I didn't even breathe. He looked shocked for half a second, like he didn't mean to say it out loud. But then he just shook his head and grabbed his coffee. "You were a mistake, Emily," he said, his voice lower now, but somehow even more painful. "I never wanted a daughter." Then he walked out of the kitchen. Just like that. Like he hadn't broken something inside me. I stood there holding my family tree, staring at the doorway. My ears were ringing. My face felt hot, but my hands felt cold. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. It was like my body forgot how. A few minutes later, I heard the front door slam. He had left the house. I slowly sat back down at the table and looked at my project again. The smiling faces, the pink heart, the word family. My eyes landed on my picture under my parents. I picked it off the page. Then I ripped it in half. That night, I didn't tell Mom what happened. I wanted to, I really did. But when she came home, she looked exhausted. Her hair was falling out of its clip, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She worked double shifts at the hospital almost every weekend because Dad said one income wasn't enough. She kissed my forehead, heated up leftover pasta, and asked me how my day was. I looked at her and forced a smile. Fine! That became my answer for everything after that. How was school? Fine. How are you feeling? Fine. Why are you so quiet lately? Fine. I learned very quickly that being quiet made life easier. It made Dad less angry. It made Mom less worried. So I stopped asking for help with homework. I stopped showing Dad my drawings. I stopped talking at dinner unless someone asked me a direct question. I became the kind of daughter who took up as little space as possible. But even when I was quiet, Dad still acted like I was too much. If I laughed too loud while watching TV with Mom, he'd glare at me. If I left my shoes by the door, he'd call me careless. If I got excited and talked too much, he'd say, "Emily, can you not be so annoying for 5 minutes?" Sometimes it wasn't even the words that hurt the most. It was the way he looked at me. Like I didn't belong in his life. Like every time he saw me, I reminded him of something he regretted. When I was 10, I found an old photo album in the hallway closet. I was looking for a board game, but the album had fallen out of a box. I sat on the floor and opened it. There were pictures of my parents when they were younger, smiling at the beach, standing in front of a little apartment, laughing with friends at some barbecue. In every photo, my dad looked happy. Really happy. Then I found a picture of Mom holding me in the hospital after I was born. She looked tired but glowing. Her hair was messy and she was smiling down at me like I was the best thing she had ever seen. Dad was standing next to her, but he wasn't smiling. He wasn't even looking at me. He was looking away from the camera with a blank expression, like he was somewhere else in his mind. Somewhere far from that room. Far from me. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I heard footsteps behind me. "What are you doing?" Dad asked sharply. I jumped and almost dropped the album. "Nothing," I said quickly. "I was just looking." He snatched the album from my hands. His eyes moved to the hospital picture, and his jaw tightened. "You need to stop touching things that don't belong to you." "I'm sorry." "You're always sorry," he muttered. Then he shoved the album back into the closet and shut the door hard. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling. I was old enough by then to understand something I hadn't wanted to admit before. My dad didn't just have a bad temper. He didn't just get stressed from work. He didn't just need space. He truly did not want me. And the worst part was, I had no idea why. I used to stand in front of the bathroom mirror and study my face, wondering if maybe I looked like someone he hated. Maybe my eyes were wrong. Maybe my voice was wrong. Maybe if I were prettier, quieter, smarter, funnier, maybe then he would love me. Maybe then he would look at me the way other dads looked at their daughters. At school, I saw fathers helping with bake sales, cheering at soccer games, carrying backpacks, fixing ponytails before class pictures. I watched them hug their daughters and call them princess, sweetheart, kiddo. I pretended it didn't bother me. But every Father's Day was torture. Every year, our teacher made us create cards for our dads. Bright paper, stickers, little poems. I love you, Dad. Thank you for everything. I always wrote the words because I had to, but they never felt true. One year, when I was 11, I made Dad a blue card with little silver stars on the front. Inside, I wrote, I hope we can spend more time together this year. Love, Emily. I left it on the kitchen counter before school. When I came home that afternoon, the card was in the trash. Not torn, not hidden, just thrown away like junk mail. I stood there staring at it, my backpack still on my shoulder. My throat burned, but I bent down, picked it out of the trash, and smoothed it with my hands. That was the first time my mother saw me cry because of him. She walked into the kitchen, holding grocery bags, and stopped when she saw the card in my hand. Emily? She said softly. I turned away and wiped my face fast. It's nothing. But Mom set the bags down and came closer. Honey, what happened? I tried to speak, but all that came out was a broken little sound. Her face changed immediately. She pulled me into her arms, and I started crying against her sweater, like I was 5 years old again. She held me tightly and kept saying, It's okay, I've got you. But it wasn't okay, and deep down, I think she knew that too. That night, after I went to my room, I heard my parents arguing downstairs. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard enough. She's your daughter, Mom shouted. Then Dad said something lower, colder. I told you from the beginning I never wanted this. I sat up in bed so fast my blanket fell to the floor. My heart pounded. I never wanted this. Not her. This. Like I wasn't a person. Like I was a problem. Then my mother said something that made my whole body go still. You need to stop punishing her for what happened in the past. There was silence. Then Dad's voice came again, hard and angry. You have no idea what it cost me. I pressed my hand over my mouth. What happened in the past? What did I cost him? And why did it sound like my mother knew a secret she had never told me? That night, I didn't sleep at all. I just stared at my bedroom door and listened to the quiet house, feeling like the ground under my life had started to crack. Because for the first time, I realized something even worse than the truth I already knew. My father didn't hate me for no reason. He hated me for something I didn't understand yet. And somehow, it had started before I was even born. The next morning, I looked at my father across the breakfast table and felt like I was staring at a stranger. He sat in his usual chair, reading the newspaper with a cup of black coffee beside him, like nothing had happened the night before. Like I hadn't heard my mother say he was punishing me for something in the past. Like I hadn't stayed awake until 3 a.m, trying to figure out what that meant. I wanted to ask him right there. I wanted to slam my hands on the table and say, What did I do? Why do you hate me? What happened before I was born? But I didn't. Because even at 11 years old, I knew one thing for sure. Asking my father questions only made things worse. So I stayed quiet and pushed cereal around my bowl while Mom moved nervously between the stove and the sink. Her eyes looked puffy, like she had cried after I went to bed. Dad didn't look at either of us. At one point, Mom set a plate of toast in front of him and said softly, You should talk to her. He didn't even lift his eyes from the paper. There's nothing to talk about. Mom's mouth tightened. She's a child. He folded the newspaper slowly and looked at her with that cold expression I hated. And I'm tired of being treated like the bad guy. Then he stood up, grabbed his keys, and left for work without touching his breakfast. The front door slammed hard enough to shake the picture frames in the hallway. Mom closed her eyes for a second, like she was trying not to fall apart. I stared at her from across the table. What did you mean last night? She froze. I could see it in her shoulders before she even turned around. What do you mean, sweetheart? You said Dad was punishing me for something in the past. My voice came out shaky, but I kept going. What happened before I was born? Mom gripped the edge of the counter so tightly her knuckles turned white. For a second, I thought she might actually tell me. Instead, she forced a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. You shouldn't have been listening to that argument. So it's true? Emily. Did I do something? I asked, my chest tightening. Is that why he doesn't want me? Her face broke a little at that. Oh, honey, no. No, you didn't do anything. Then why does he hate me? The words came out louder than I meant them to. They hung in the kitchen like smoke. Mom walked over and knelt beside my chair. She took both my hands in hers, warm and trembling. Your father doesn't hate you. I pulled my hands away. Then why does he act like this? She looked down at the floor, and that silence told me more than her words ever could. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the tile. You know why, don't you? Emily, please. You know, and you won't tell me. Tears filled my eyes, but I was too angry to let them fall. I grabbed my backpack from the floor and headed for the door. Where are you going? Mom called. School. It's too early. Your bus doesn't come for 20 minutes. I'll walk. Emily! But I was already out the door. The cold air hit my face the second I stepped outside, but it felt good. Better than that kitchen. Better than all the lies sitting at our table. I walked the whole way to school with tears burning in my eyes and one thought repeating in my head. Everyone knows something about my life except me. That feeling stayed with me for weeks. I started watching my parents more closely after that. Every look, every argument, every quiet moment between them felt like a clue to some secret I wasn't supposed to know. When Dad came home late and Mom asked where he'd been, I watched his face. When Mom found an old bill in his jacket and they fought in whispers behind their bedroom door, I listened from the hallway. When my name came up in conversation and the room suddenly went silent, I noticed. It was like living inside a puzzle where everyone had the missing pieces except me. Then one afternoon, about a month later, I found something that changed everything. It happened by accident. Mom had asked me to bring in the laundry from the garage while she finished dinner. Our garage was small and cluttered, full of old boxes, holiday decorations, and things my parents kept saying they'd organize someday. I was reaching for the laundry basket when I knocked over a stack of dusty storage bins. One of the lids popped open, papers spilled across the floor. I bent down to pick them up, already annoyed, when I saw my name written on one of the folders. Emily Carter. My heart skipped. I looked toward the door that led back into the kitchen. I could hear Mom moving around inside, humming softly to herself, completely unaware. Then I looked back at the folder. My hands started to shake as I opened it. Inside were hospital papers. Some of them were old and yellowed at the edges. There was my birth certificate, a few medical forms, and a thin envelope with confidential stamped across the front. I pulled out a folded piece of paper. At the top it said, "Paternity test results." I stopped breathing. My eyes moved down the page slowly, almost like my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. Then I saw the words that made the whole world tilt under me. Probability of paternity, 0%. I read it again and again, 0%. I felt sick. My knees hit the concrete floor, but I barely noticed the pain. My hands were trembling so badly, the paper rattled like it was caught in the wind. No, that couldn't be right. I looked at the name on the page. Father tested. Daniel Carter. That was my dad. Or at least, the man I had always believed was my dad. But according to that paper, he wasn't my father at all. I stared at the words until they blurred. Suddenly, every strange look, every cruel comment, every cold silence in our house rushed through my mind all at once. You were a mistake, Emily. I never wanted a daughter. I told you from the beginning I never wanted this. You need to stop punishing her for what happened in the past. A horrible thought rose inside me, slow and sharp. Did my father hate me because I wasn't really his? The garage felt too small, too hot, too loud. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I flipped through the rest of the papers with desperate hands, searching for something, anything, that would explain what I had just found. And then I saw another document. It was a letter from a lawyer. At the top was a date from 11 years earlier, just a few months after I was born. I unfolded it, my fingers numb. The first line read, "This letter confirms Mr. Daniel Carter's request to file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity." I went completely still. Infidelity. My mother had cheated on him. That was what this was about. That was why he looked at me like I had ruined his life. That was why he could never love me. Because every time he saw me, he didn't see his daughter. He saw proof that his wife had betrayed him. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned so fast I nearly fell over. Mom was standing in the garage doorway, still wearing her kitchen apron, her face pale as paper. Her eyes dropped to the folder in my lap, then to the paternity test in my hand. And in that second, before she even said a word, I knew one thing for sure. She had been hiding this from me my entire life. "Emily," she whispered. I stared at her, my chest heaving. Who is my real father? My mother looked like she had stopped breathing. For a moment, she just stood there in the garage doorway, one hand still holding the edge of her apron, staring at the papers in my lap like they were something dangerous, something alive. I had never seen her face look like that before. Not angry, not sad, terrified. "Emily!" she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Give me the folder." I clutched it tighter against my chest and stood up so fast the laundry basket tipped over beside me. No! Her eyes filled with panic. Honey, please! No! My voice cracked so hard it barely sounded like mine. You lied to me! I was trying to protect you. From what? I shouted. From the truth? From him? From you? She flinched like I had slapped her. I didn't care. For 11 years, I had lived in a house where I felt unwanted, blamed, and broken. For 11 years, I thought there was something wrong with me. And now I was standing in our garage, holding proof that the people who were supposed to protect me had built my whole life on secrets. Who is my father? I asked again, louder this time. Tell me his name. Mom looked over her shoulder toward the kitchen, like she was afraid my father might walk in at any second. Then she stepped inside the garage and shut the door behind her. The sound of it clicking closed made my stomach twist. She took a shaky breath. His name was Michael. Was. I caught that right away. Was? I repeated. What does that mean? Tears filled her eyes instantly. He died before you were born. The folder almost slipped from my hands. What? She pressed one hand over her mouth and nodded, crying now. He died in a car accident when I was 3 months pregnant. I stared at her, unable to speak. Everything inside me felt scrambled, like someone had taken the pieces of my life and thrown them into the air. My real father was dead? Before I was even born? Then who was Michael? How had my mother known him? Had she loved him? Had he known about me? Had he wanted me? The questions hit me so fast I could barely breathe. You cheated on Dad with him? I asked, my voice shaking. My mother closed her eyes. Yes. The word landed like a punch. I had never heard my mother admit to doing something wrong before. In my mind, she was always the soft one. The safe one. The person who kissed, scraped knees, and packed lunches, and stayed up late helping with school projects. But now I was looking at a woman I suddenly didn't know at all. Why? I whispered. She opened her eyes, and they were full of shame. Because your father and I were already falling apart, she said. We got married too young. We were fighting all the time. He was angry, distant, and I was lonely. Then I met Michael at the hospital. He was kind, and he listened to me. He made me feel seen when everything at home felt cold and broken. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. So, you had an affair? She nodded once miserably. For 6 months, she said. Then I found out I was pregnant, around the same time Michael died. I swallowed hard. Did you know I was his? No, she said quickly. Not at first. I truly didn't know. I told Daniel I was pregnant, and for a little while, I convinced myself the baby was his. I wanted to believe our marriage still had a chance. I laughed bitterly through my tears. So you lied? Yes. That one word cut deeper than I expected. I looked down at the paternity test in my hand. And when did you find out? When you were 3 months old. I stared at her. Daniel ordered the test after... Her voice broke. After he started noticing the dates didn't make sense. He was already suspicious. When the results came back, He moved out for almost 2 months. He filed for divorce. Then why didn't he leave? I asked. Why stay with us if he hated me so much? Mom wiped at her face with both hands, like she was trying to hold herself together. Because I begged him not to go. I felt something hard and cold settle in my chest. What? She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I was scared. I had a newborn baby, no family nearby, and I didn't make enough money to support us on my own. I told him I'd do anything if he stayed. Counseling, a post-nup, whatever he wanted. And he agreed? Eventually. She looked down, but only on one condition. I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. What condition? Mom's lips trembled. He said he would stay married to me, but he would never treat you like his daughter. The garage went silent. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had spent years wondering why my father looked at me with so much distance. Why he never hugged me. Why every kind word from him felt impossible. And now I knew. It wasn't because he didn't know how to love. It was because he had made a choice. A deliberate, cruel choice. He had agreed to live in the same house as me while refusing to be my father. Every ignored birthday, every harsh word, every Father's Day card in the trash. He had chosen all of it. I backed away from my mother, like I couldn't stand being near her. You let that happen. Emily, please. You let me grow up with someone who hated me. I thought he would change, she cried. I thought if we stayed together long enough, if he got to know you, if he saw how sweet and smart and loving you were, he would soften. I thought he would become your father in every way that mattered. But he didn't. Her face crumpled. No. I felt sick. I looked at the house door behind her, the one that led back into our kitchen, our family photos, our dinner table, my bedroom upstairs with glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to the ceiling. None of it felt real anymore. I thought about every moment I had begged silently for Daniel Carter to love me. Every time I tried to be quieter, better, easier. Every time I blamed myself. And all along, the adults in my life knew exactly why he treated me that way. They just let me believe it was my fault. Does he know I found out? I asked. Mom shook her head quickly. No, please don't tell him, not like this. I almost laughed. Not like this. As if there were a gentle way to tell a child her whole life had been a lie. As if there were a good moment to learn that the man who raised you had chosen not to love you. I took a step toward the garage door. Mom moved in front of me. Where are you going? To talk to him. Her eyes widened in fear. Emily, no, please. He'll be home soon, and if you confront him while you're upset. Upset? I snapped. You think I'm just upset? You don't understand how angry he still is. I stared at her. Then I said the words that had been sitting like fire in my throat since I found the papers. Good. And right then, as if the universe wanted to prove how broken my life really was, I heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. My mother's face went white. Dad was home. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. I was furious. The garage door shook as my father stepped inside the house. I could hear the heavy sound of his boots in the hallway, the jingle of his keys hitting the kitchen counter, the deep sigh he always made when he came home from work. For years, that sound had filled me with fear. But not anymore. This time, all I felt was rage. I pushed past my mother before she could stop me and ran through the kitchen. She called my name behind me, her voice full of panic, but I didn't slow down. Dad was standing at the sink, pouring himself a glass of water. He turned when he heard me. At first, his face showed only annoyance. Then he saw the folder in my hand. And everything changed. The color drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" he asked. My chest rose and fell so hard it hurt. "I know." My mother rushed in behind me. "Emily, please don't do this right now." But I kept my eyes on him. "I know you're not my father." The room went silent. Dad put the glass down slowly. His jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. "I know about the paternity test," I said. "I know about my mom's affair. I know my real father died before I was born." My voice shook, but I forced myself to keep going. "And I know you stayed in this house, knowing you would never love me." Mom was crying behind me now, but I barely heard her. I was looking at the man who had made me feel worthless for almost my whole life. And I needed to hear the truth from him. "Why?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether I deserved an answer. Then he rubbed his hand over his mouth and looked away. "Because every time I saw you," he said quietly, "I remembered what she did to me." I felt like I had been slapped. "You punished me because Mom cheated on you?" "It wasn't that simple." "Then explain it to me," I shouted. "Because I was a baby. I didn't do anything to you." He flinched at that, but only for a second. "You think I don't know that?" he snapped back. "You think I wanted to feel this way?" "Yes," I cried. "I do. Because you chose it." The words hit the room like broken glass. He stared at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Shame, not anger, not irritation. Shame. He sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs and pressed both hands against his face. "When your mother told me she was pregnant," he said, his voice rough, "I was scared, but part of me was happy. I thought maybe a baby would fix things between us. I thought maybe we could be a family." Mom let out a quiet sob behind me. "But then I found out the truth," he continued, "and something in me just broke. I felt humiliated, betrayed, stupid. Everyone at work knew we were having problems, and all I could think was that people were laughing at me behind my back. Then I looked at you, and instead of seeing a little girl who needed love, I saw proof that my whole life had fallen apart." I swallowed hard, my throat aching. That still wasn't my fault. He nodded once, slowly. "I know." "Then why didn't you leave?" I asked. "Why stay and make me feel unwanted every day?" He looked at my mother, then back at me. "Because I still loved your mother," he said, "and because part of me thought I could get past it. But I never really did. I kept waiting for the anger to disappear, and instead, it turned into something ugly. Something I took out on you, even when I knew it was wrong." I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. You told me I was a mistake. His eyes closed. I know. You threw away my Father's Day card. His face twisted like the memory hurt. I know. You looked at me like I ruined your life. That one broke him. He opened his eyes, and they were full of tears now. I'm sorry, Emily. I had wanted those words for so many years. I had imagined this moment in 100 different ways. Him finally seeing me, finally regretting everything, finally apologizing. But standing there in my kitchen, with tears on my face and pain in my chest, it didn't fix anything. It didn't erase the nights I cried myself to sleep. It didn't change the little girl who tore her own picture off a family tree because her father said she was a mistake. It didn't give me back the childhood I should have had. I don't care, I whispered. The words shocked all of us. Even me. Dad stared at me like I had hit him. I wiped my face with shaking hands. I don't care if you're sorry now. You had 11 years to be kind to me, 11 years to act like I mattered, and you chose not to. Emily, Mom said weakly. I turned to her too, because I wasn't done. And you, I said, my voice cracking. You let it happen. You knew why he treated me like that, and you still made me stay in this house with him. She covered her mouth and sobbed. I thought I was protecting you, she whispered. No, I said. You were protecting yourself. The room went still. I think that was the moment my mother finally understood how deep the damage went. Not because I yelled, but because I had stopped trying to make either of them feel better. I wasn't the little girl begging to be loved anymore. I was tired, so unbelievably tired. I looked at both of them, the woman who had lied to me and the man who had chosen to punish me for being born, and I realized something that changed my life. Their pain was not my fault. Their broken marriage was not my fault. Their bad choices, their anger, their regret, none of it belonged to me. I had spent years carrying shame that was never mine to carry. And in that moment, I finally put it down. I'm done trying to earn love from people who keep hurting me, I said quietly. Dad's face crumpled. Please don't go. But I already was. I walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and called the only person I trusted completely, my Aunt Rachel, my mom's older sister. She lived 20 minutes away and had always treated me like I mattered. When I told her I needed a place to stay, she didn't ask questions. She just said, I'm coming! That night, I left the Carter house with red eyes, a backpack, and a heart that felt both shattered and strangely free. I stayed with Aunt Rachel for 3 weeks. During that time, my parents called constantly. My mom left long voicemails full of tears. Dad only left 2 messages, but hearing his voice say, "Please come home," felt so strange I almost didn't recognize it. I didn't go back right away. I needed space. I needed silence. I needed to learn who I was without spending every day trying to be enough for someone who had already decided I wasn't. Aunt Rachel helped me start therapy. She sat with me through the hard nights, made pancakes on Saturday mornings, and reminded me again and again that what happened was not my burden to carry. Healing didn't happen fast. It still hasn't. I'm 19 now, and some scars don't disappear just because you understand where they came from. My mother and I are trying to rebuild something honest. It's slow, but it's real. And my father, Daniel, well, I don't call him Dad anymore. Not because I hate him, but because that word is something you earn. Sometimes he writes me letters, real letters, on paper. He tells me he's in therapy too. He says he knows sorry isn't enough, but he wants to spend the rest of his life becoming a better man than the one who raised me. Maybe one day I'll forgive him fully. Maybe I already have, a little. But forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. And loving someone doesn't mean letting them keep breaking you. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You are not a mistake just because someone failed to love you the right way. Sometimes adults hand children their pain and call it family. But that pain was never mine to keep. My name is Emily Carter. And for the first time in my life, I know this much is true. I was never the mistake. They were.